Hi, I'm Karina. Welcome to this Yin Yoga practice for the hips and the lower body. In this practice, we've just put together a few postures and sequences to help clear sort of that feeling of stuck energy in the hip flexors and the lower body. So this will be great for you if you know that this is in your body where you get really stuck or tight, and you've got the luxury in this video of deciding if you want a bit more time or a bit less time in each of the shapes. So as we come into all these different postures, if you feel that you want more time, please feel free to pause the video and stay for longer. Or if you need to come out earlier than my cue, please make sure that you're taking care of your body. This is not necessarily a yin practice that I would recommend you do daily, but if you are someone who cycles or runs or just is sitting at your desk a lot, something like this practice could be a good tonic to add in maybe once a week. For this practice, I'm going to be using a bolster, and I've got 2 blocks. If you don't have yoga props where you're practicing today, it would be really great if you can find some kind of a substitute. And the blocks can be substituted well with a couple of thick books. And a bolster can be substituted well with a couple of pillows. And it's probably going to be a good idea for you to have extra cushions or pillows anyway, because we all need different heights under the body for some of these postures. So if you need some time to go and get some things, go ahead and scavenge around and find some props, and then we'll meet you back here. And then when you're ready to settle in, we're just going to start by coming into your version of an easy position that's upright and seated. So it could be cross-legged like I am. You might prefer to have your legs out long. You might have a kneeling position as your preference. And so when you're getting settled here, hands could be resting on the knees, palms could be turned up. You're welcome to keep your eyes opened or close them down if that's more comfortable for you. And if you have just closed down your eyes, let that be the beginning point of you turning your attention and turning your inward energy back onto yourself, and starting to notice the way that you're breathing. And just see if it's possible here to encourage both your inhales and your exhales to have an even length. So it takes just as much time for you to breathe in as it does for you to breathe out. And just settle in here for about 4 or 5 inhales and exhales. Letting your pelvis and your feet sink deeply into the floor. And also see if it's possible to invite a little extra softness into your face and your shoulders and your belly. And then start to take for yourself 3 slightly deeper breaths in. If you want to, you can exhale out through your mouth. And when you're ready, just softly opening your eyes. Namaste. We're going to start off just bringing a really gentle opening to the fronts of the hips. I'm going to use this bolster. This would be the time for you to grab your cushions or your substitutes, and we're going to bring ourselves down onto the floor or down onto your mat. Just rolling your body down and then walking your feet up onto the floor, and then take your cushion or bolsters and just start by bringing them underneath your knees. And then you want to just use a little bit of effort to bring those cushions or your bolster up underneath your buttocks. And you really want to have it in a position where it's collecting the full weight of your pelvis, that it's not up in your lower back and that it's not kind of down at the tail end of your buttock muscles. And then it's up to you how much you explore this, but you could just see what it feels like to walk your feet forward, maybe quite a lot. And some of you might even feel like it's okay to lengthen your legs out completely and just let the feet flop, sprawling out through the arms. Depending on how high your pelvis is lifted, will probably affect how much gentle stretch begins to turn up at the front of your hip flexors. And you might also feel a little bit of that releasing sensation through the lower back. So as we take a couple of minutes here resting to start, just see if you can let your awareness settle into the front of your body, especially the region of your hip flexors. In Chinese medicine, there's a few meridian lines that run through the hip flexors. The predominant meridian is the liver meridian. And because the liver meridian can get really stuck, it's not uncommon for people to have an emotional release when they work into some of the postures that we're going to play with today. So if you do have an experience during this class of a bit of irritation or frustration or anger or even grief come up, it's okay. And you're not alone. And it might just mean that you need some more time in the rebound that follows, so you can manage your time with that. Here, can you feel your belly rising and falling? Into that belly space, take your next 3 deeper breaths. And again, on this 3rd exhale, if it feels good to you, just let it roll out of an open mouth. And of course, if you want more time here, stay. If you're ready to come out, just slowly walk your feet back onto the mat. Bring your hands onto the cushions or bolsters. Lift your hips up and just slide that out from beneath you. Bring the hips back down to the floor. And then just for a little bit as a release, make the knees wide and just bring them into the body. And you could either just move around intuitively here, like little circles of your femur heads in their hip sockets, or you could even reach your feet up for the outer blades or the inner arches and bend the knees a little bit for happy baby. And same thing, rolling around. Sometimes this can feel really nice on the lower back, just rocking from side to side. And then on your next exhale, just release your feet or your legs. Bring the feet back down to the floor. Find a nice slow way to roll yourself onto your side and then bring yourself up to sitting. So now I'm going to reach for my 2 blocks. So just gather in all the things that you've got and we'll make do with what you have. And I'm just going to bring them up nice and close, and I'm going to come up into a lunge position. So we're now going to start really getting into this area, and the first side that we're going to target is the right hip flexor. Actually, I'm going to bring these to the other side, and we're going to come up into a lunge with the left leg in front. And so with your left leg in front, the right leg back behind you, already we're going to be targeting that right hip flexor. It might be helpful for you to have a soft cushion handy to tuck under that back knee, just so that the kneecap feels a bit more supported. We're not diving straight into dragon. What we're going to do first is what I call flossing out the hip. So just having your hands steady on the floor, you may need to widen this left leg. You might even need to turn that foot out to give you some space. I'm going to tuck my back toes under behind me, and then nice and slowly, it doesn't have to be all the way, on your next breath in, just let your weight shift forward, and you can even extend that through the chest and let the chin rise up. And then as you exhale, we're just going to push back. Now you might rock back just a few inches. You might even walk your hands back and give that front leg a little bit of a stretch. And then follow your next inhale and come forward. Same thing, just slowly inhaling just as far as feels okay, and then slowly exhaling to shift back. You set the pace for how you want to move. Let's do about 5 or 6 of these. Not necessarily looking to go all the way to your end range of motion straight away. Flossing, easing, breathing. And as you can see, I'm using my hands like a couple of extra levers or support systems to hold some of the weight for me. So use your hands and arms here. I'm going to move through 2 more. And as you come through this next one, we're going to settle in for your version of dragon for about 3 minutes, more if you want. So feel free to soften the back foot to the floor now. Now you might like to stay up on your hands and be really lifted. That back knee is probably going to want one of your cushions or a blanket underneath it. Some of you may want to come down onto your forearms, which could be stronger, but maybe that's what you want. I'm going to use these 2 blocks and talk you through upright dragon. So I'm going to take 1 block in my right hand and have it underneath my shoulder. I'm leaning into my left thigh with my left forearm. Now, if that's too strong on this left leg, my second block or book or stack of cushions can go underneath your sitting bone. Make sure it's really sturdy, and that's going to take a lot of work out of that left leg. You can lean into this right hand as much as you want, and if it's helpful, once you feel settled and grounded, muscles don't have to contract too much, close your eyes and come into your breath. Now the region that we're targeting, as you can probably feel, is the right hip flexor, but that could even extend all the way down into your right quad. And if you're in this lifted variation with me, it might even extend all the way up into the psoas and abdominal region too. Take a little feel and see if your jaw just got very tense, or your facial muscles. going to pop in one more option here, and that is to take a spiral into your upright dragon. Stay where you are if that's great. If you want to come with me on the spiral, I do recommend something under this sitting bone, firm. And then I'm going to take my hand off this block and just take both forearms across onto the left femur. I also call this kitchen bench pose, as if you were leaning on someone's kitchen bench while they were chopping up or cooking you dinner. So it's kind of a real slumpy, relaxed feeling. And we're just inviting that sensation to now really spiral up the torso. You will need to firm up that left foot a little bit, but if you've got the block under your sitting bone, sink your weight into it. And there's about 6 or 7 more exhales here. Come out sooner if you need to. Good. Give your whole body a decent breath in. Breathe out. And slowly begin to shift out, clearing things out of the way. Now, it might feel pretty intense coming out of this, so your options are to just move slowly into the floor and find an effortless position. Or if your back, ankle, and knee are okay for it, you could take a short interim folding back into what's called bowing dragon, which was kind of what we did in the flossing. And this will just take that hip flexor area softly into flexion instead of extension. And you can just hang out here for a little bit until it feels a bit more quenched. And then come and find yourself a very effortless rebound. So ideally, maybe just in a Shavasana type position or laying on your belly. And just let that have a moment to settle into the floor. Your right hip flexor area is probably going to feel very different to your left right now. So what do you observe about that? Please rest in your rebound as long as you need. When you're ready to come out, you might even want to add in something that feels good. It could just be a hug of knees to chest. And then slowly find your way up to sitting again, and we're going to balance that out on the other side. So just make sure you bring all your stuff over with you, including something for that back knee. Now we're going to come up into our lunge position with the right foot in front. So we're shifting over to the left hip flexor target area. So once again, you might need to widen that right leg and tuck the back toes under. Maybe even turn the foot out. And just nice and slow, we're going to do about sort of 6 to 8 of those movements forward and back, flossing out the hip. So the inhale gently lets the hip settle forward. It doesn't have to be all the way. And then the exhale is just moving back. Hands are there. to support you. Shifting forward as you breathe in. And shifting back as you breathe out. So you know this now. Just move at your own pace. Follow your breath. As you move through, you might even just extend the movement a little more. So looking up toward the ceiling. And then looking in toward the body. I'm going to travel through one more. And the next time you're coming forward, we're going to start settling in. So back foot gets soft. You might need a wider foot here. And if you are familiar with dragon and you've got your version that you love, you don't have to do the upright one that I'm going to do. You might stay here. You might come close to the floor. You might want to wing your dragon. All of those options are fine. I am going to do what I did on the first side though, and that is to grab my 2 blocks. One to go underneath my sitting bone. So I really do feel like I can sit. And then the other, it's like a 3rd bone in my arm, or 4th bone actually, 2 bones in the forearm. And then settling into the thigh with my right arm. There's going to be subtle and not so subtle differences from the first side to this side. So even sometimes a really little rolling of the hips can help you find the sweet spot. And that's fine. There's no need to worry about pelvis being totally square here, unless it's creating pain for you. And it should be noted that the intensity of what you feel, if you were going to grade it out of 10, really shouldn't ever be more than a 7 out of 10. That's probably too much here. So if you get angry in dragon, it might be that you're clearing emotions, but it might also be that you're pushing yourself too hard. So come back a little bit. Come back to the place where you feel like you can soften your mouth again. And relax your face again. Close the eyes if that works for you and find your breath rhythm. And then you've got the option to add in the spiral from before if you want to. Make sure you are nice and steady with something or many things under this sitting bone. And then I'm going to take my left hand off that block and just scoop around, twist around and lean into this right leg and this right foot. So I can kind of sink in and feel like I don't have to work hard or contract too much in this right leg. And then just notice where that sensation spirals up through the hip flexor, through the core, maybe through your psoas area. for about 6 to 7 exhalations. Take a deep, slow breath in. Clear all of that breath out. And ease out of your shape. Either moving straight to a rebound, or again, you've got the option here of sinking back slowly into bowing dragon and let that left hip flexor tell you how long it wants you to be here. And then come to the floor again. Effortless position. It's also a moment of review and reflection, so you don't want to feel like you've got to do any work. Let the floor do the work and you can melt into it. As you land, what kind of buzzing or communication is moving through that hip flexor on the left? And does it feel like there's been some kind of balance created between both sides? And now that we've done both of those little sequences, just take 5 extra slow exhales here, and as you breathe out, just see if it's possible to let the whole area of your pelvis sink deeply into the floor. Breathing deeply down to your belly. Breathing out. Moving in any way that feels good, but just be slow. And we are going to now start shifting into a little bit more lower body stuff. So find an easy way for you to come up out of the floor. And we're going to come and sit upright and set up for butterfly. So butterfly hopefully will just give your hip flexors a bit of a break. But if you are someone that comes to sit here and your hip flexors really sort of tense up and struggle, you might find that those 2 props you were using before instead of blocks a lovely way to just let your legs rest into something, and you can figure out what height you need. You can also have your feet quite far away from you or in close. We're now shifting tack to a place where you might feel a targeted sensation in your inner thigh muscles or your outer hips and through the back. It might not be all 3, it might be just one of those 3, but that's the potential that this shape has. And it's going to take us into a forward fold. So have your bolster or bolster substitute handy, and then take a moment here to close your eyes and just drop into your sitting bones and your feet. Relax the belly. Imagine that you were still laying on the floor. from where you can feel your body in contact with the floor. Take one slow inhalation toward the top of your head. And as you exhale, let gravity help you to slowly tip the head forward. And when that's heavy enough, it'll start bringing the spine forward. Hands can move accordingly. And then when you feel a natural amount of resistance that stops you, that's your shape for now. And so if that's you just sort of hanging here and it's too much, find some way to initially support your head. It might be resting hands under the chin. It might be hands at the forehead. It might be that the block is the perfect height for your forehead. And we're going to be here for a little bit. So it's important that you take care of what you need and what you can feel. So play around with this a bit. You may not need anything under the head and you're happy just to let the head hang. And depending on how this feels for you, there's about 10 to 15 breaths on offer here. Breathing into your whole back. Breathing out. If you're not ready yet, stay for a bit longer. If you are, slowly unravel your spine. Some people feel good to sit for a bit and catch up. And then find yourself moving toward your version of a rebound. So it could be that you lay down flat again on the floor. If when you lay down flat, you get a very interesting new sensation in your lower back that feels like a spreading ache, Sometimes having the feet flat on the floor is more supportive, or you could tuck your cushions or bolsters back under your knees and just let the lumbar have that support. It's a very common sensation, so it's nothing to be necessarily alarmed about. All of the deep thoracolumbar fascia of the lower back is simply readjusting after being lengthened. So just give it time and breathe. And if and when it feels right, you could hug knees into chest again. You might even come back to the happy baby move we did at the start. Just move around for as long as that feels good. And then the last thing we're going to do here is something reclined back over your bolster or your cushion. So find an easy way to come up just so that you can find that prop or those props and bring that back behind you. And we're going to be laying down again, but you want to have that nice and close to the back of your pelvis. So you can simply lay back over it. You may need that higher. You might need another cushion at the head end there. And rolling the spine back down. Whatever you want to do with the legs is great. And wherever you want the arms to be, just make sure that they feel settled and comfortable. They might even want to be up over the head. This is just a soft segue toward our Shavasana. A chance for you to feel how this practice has had an influence on your body, maybe even how it's had an influence on your mind, your thinking, your mood, your breathing. And of course, you're so welcome to stay here as long as you want. On the other side of this, we're just going to make ourselves more comfortable for Shavasana. So when you get to that time, it's probably a good idea to take this out. You might prefer to slip the bolster back underneath your knees. And it can be nice, depending on where you're practicing and what the temperature's like in your room, to have a shawl or a blanket to drape across the body, just to contain your practice and make sure you stay warm and comfortable. So gather in what you know works well for you. You could turn the lights down, you could place something over your eyes. Take up as much room as you need with your arms and legs. rolling down the eyes if that's okay for you. And just letting the whole back of your body sink into the floor. This is going to be a quiet Shavasana. It's just a chance for you to rest and breathe. And in a few minutes, we'll gather back up and out together. And then just shifting your focus back to your inhales. Allowing the body to be gently re-inflated with your breath. Take as many of these deeper breaths as you need before you want to start moving again. The head, the hands and feet. Maybe a long stretch. And then take all the time that you need to find your way from the floor toward your upright seat again. Just slowly getting resettled in that upright seat. Hands could return to wherever you started them. Just taking a soft moment to notice how you feel. And hopefully on some level, this practice today has helped to clear a little bit of that stuck feeling in the hips and the low back for you. Gently bringing your hands around to prayer, just in the center of your chest. And we'll take a slow breath in together. And breathe out. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.